The fluorescent lights hummed above, a flat, sterile buzz that seemed to vibrate in my bones. I woke up, or rather, I became aware. The ceiling tiles were an off-white, industrial kind of uniform I knew so well. But I knew them from somewhere else, too. From a headache, a dizzying nausea that still clung to the edges of my vision. "Ethan, awake, are we, sweetheart?" I blinked. The voice was soft, too soft for the harsh light. Jennifer, Nurse Jennifer. Her face, a patchwork of kind lines and tired eyes, leaned over me. She had a pen tucked behind her ear, a habit from way back, I thought. But the sweetheart part? "Nurse Jennifer," I started, my voice a dry rasp. "I think you're mistaken. That name, only my mother calls me that." I tried a weak smile, one that felt more like a grimace. I watched her, waiting for the flicker of recognition, the slight flush of polite embarrassment. It didn't come. Her smile just widened a fraction, a professional, distant thing. "Oh, you must still be a little disoriented from the accident," she said, her tone unwavering. "It's what I always call you, dear." She reached out, a cool hand pressing briefly to my forehead. Her touch felt clinical. I pulled my words back, swallowed hard. My throat burned. "Chances are I misheard," I half mumbled, shaking my head a little on the cold silk pillow. The faint rustle of the fabric against my cheek was loud, too loud. My heart, I swear, thrummed like a trapped bird against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. The sound pulsed, thick and heavy. I looked around the room. White, stark white walls. No pictures, no flowers. Not a single potted plant. Just the hard angles of medical equipment. Tubes and wires coiling on the floor like sleeping snakes. It was all so clean. Too clean. Like every speck of dust, every lingering emotion had been scrubbed away. Even the air felt thin, stripped of any scent that wasn't antiseptic. The silence, besides that buzzing light, felt stretched, heavy, as if the world outside had forgotten to make noise. Why did I think there should be a plant, a small green thing on the windowsill? It was gone, if it was ever there. I spent another day in that room, that too quiet room, before they finally let me go. Jennifer gave me a discharge form, wished me well, still calling me sweetheart, with that same bland, unwavering smile. I felt like a ghost walking out, the bright afternoon sun a punch to my eyes. The world outside felt a little flat, like a photograph that had lost some of its depth. Being home was supposed to fix everything. My own apartment, the worn sofa, the stack of books on the coffee table, the view of the city that usually made me feel grounded. I closed the door behind me. The lock clicked, a solid, reassuring sound. I kicked off my shoes, walked into the kitchen. My kitchen. I needed coffee, seriously. Too much hospital coffee, too little of that rich, dark blend I loved. I went through the motions. Filter, grounds, water. Habit, I guess. I poured it into my favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim, placed it on the small wooden table next to my laptop. Always the same spot. 2 centimeters from the edge of the keyboard, to the right. Always. I turned to grab the sugar from the cupboard. Just a quick spin. A muscle in my neck, still stiff from the accident, protested. When I turned back, mug in hand, my breath hitched. The cup. My coffee cup. It was on the left.
not by much, maybe half an inch. But it was on the left, and it was still warm. I hadn't made coffee yet. I stared. My hand, still holding the sugar pot, felt numb. "What the hell?" I whispered, my voice cracked, thin. I put the sugar down, stared at the mug. No, that couldn't be right. I always put it on the right. Always. My mind was playing tricks, still reeling from the crash, from the drugs. Has to be. I rubbed my temples, trying to clear the fog. Then I saw it. On the pristine white wall behind the table, a hairline crack, fine as a thread, almost invisible unless you looked hard. It ran upwards, snaking towards the ceiling, where I was absolutely certain there wasn't one last night, or any night. I live here, for God's sake. I would have seen it. I narrowed my eyes, leaned closer. The air around me felt suddenly still, and a cold patch settled right on the back of my neck, a cold, damp spot. I reached out a trembling finger, intending to trace the crack.
Just as my finger was about to touch the wall, it shimmered. Not like a reflection, like it just dissolved. The crack was gone. No trace, nothing. Just the smooth, unbroken white paint. My chest squeezed tight, a vice tightening around my lungs. A dry, rasping gulp echoed in my throat, loud enough that I felt it vibrate. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. My hands were shaking. I grabbed the edge of the table, knuckles white. "It's just me being tired," I mumbled, my voice lost, thin. My eyes, they still haven't settled after the accident. That's all. Just tired. I closed my eyes, squeezed them shut hard, until spots danced behind my eyelids. "Come on, Ethan. Get a grip. It was a bad crash. You're messed up. That's it." But the cold spot on my neck lingered, and the image of that disappearing crack was burned behind my eyes. The next few days blurred into an anxious haze. I tried to focus, to work from home, but every shadow seemed to stretch too long. Every familiar object seemed subtly shifted. I kept finding small things. A book on my shelf, one I remembered reading years ago, now had a different cover. A news report on TV mentioned a local politician, but I could have sworn that person had retired years ago. It was like living in a slightly out-of-tune song. The notes were mostly right, but something was off, just enough to make you uncomfortable. I couldn't shake the feeling. The only thing that made sense, the only thing that felt real to me, was the Quantum Physics Center. The crash, the core, my accident. Maybe I'd find some answers there, or, at least, something to prove I wasn't losing my mind. So I went. The security guard, old Frank, just nodded as I waved my ID. Didn't even glance at it, which was odd. Frank usually checked everything twice. I shrugged it off. Maybe he's just tired too. My lab. It was quiet. Too quiet. The usual hum of cooling systems, the soft clicks of equipment, all replaced by a low, almost imperceptible thrum that seemed to come from the very floor. The air here felt heavy, charged. I walked past rows of gleaming machinery, all sterile and cold. Nothing moved. It was late afternoon, but the labs were usually bustling. Empty now. I went to my workstation. The main monitor, a huge curved screen, was still on, flickering with data. It showed results from our last experiment, the one that ended, well, the one that ended in the accident. But the numbers, the symbols, they weren't right. They were jumbled, dancing haphazardly. And then a pattern emerged from the chaos. Strange, swirling lines, like A graph, a biofrequency chart, a brainwave. That's odd, I whispered, leaning closer. My breath fogged the cool glass of the screen. I'd never configured this display, not like this. Was it some kind of system error? A residual data dump from the crash? I saw my reflection on the screen. My face, pale and strained under the screen's pale, watery blue light, was a roadmap of worry. I watched myself. I blinked. On the screen, my reflection didn't. It just stared, eyes wide, blank, like a doll's eyes, lifeless. 2 long, drawn-out seconds later, the reflection blinked. A jarring, unnatural delay. I gasped, a small, choked sound. I stumbled back, my elbow hitting the edge of the workbench with a dull thud. A spill of papers scattered to the floor. "No way," I stuttered, my voice barely there. "I never set this up, did I? Or am I just too tired? Seriously, Ethan, pull yourself together." I squeezed my eyes shut once more, wishing it all away. Opened them again, slowly. The screen flickered. The strange biofrequency lines dissolved. And then, stark and angry, glaring red letters materialized across the display. Loop, unstable, anchor, shattered. I stared at it. Loop, unstable, anchor, shattered. The words seemed to burn into my mind. Not a system error, not a casual glitch. This felt personal, a message. But from whom? And what the hell did it mean? I felt my body stiffen, every muscle locked, my jaw ached. My heart was a war drum in my chest, threatening to burst out. I couldn't just assume I was hallucinating anymore, not after this. This was too specific, too targeted. I scrambled to the small, dusty library tucked away in the back of the center. Old, forgotten research papers, obscure theories. It was a long shot, but I needed something, anything. Dust motes danced in the slivers of weak light filtering through the grimy windows. I ran my fingers along spines, searching. My gaze landed on a thin, nondescript volume, its cover faded and peeling. The Quantum Nucleus, a theoretical framework. Author unknown, probably some crackpot, but nucleus, anchor. My mind latched onto it. I pulled it out, blowing a cloud of dust into the stale air. I flipped through the brittle pages, scanning, my eyes racing over complex equations and dense theoretical prose. And then I found it. A paragraph buried deep within a chapter called Inter-Reality Resonances. It spoke of the possibility of an individual, under extreme quantum stress, becoming a nexus, a living anchor grounding an entire lattice of interconnected realities, a core, a kernel, a nucleus. As my eyes landed on the word nucleus for the second time, something happened. A small black dot, no bigger than a pinprick, appeared right on the page, covering the letter U. It wasn't ink. It seemed to bloom. The black dot spread, hissing faintly, like a tiny drop of acid on paper. It grew into a scorch mark, burnt and crackling, eating away at the very word. Nucleus. It was real. The burnt edges were crisp, brittle. I could smell it. The faint, acrid scent of burnt paper. A cold shiver, colder than anything I'd felt inside Jennifer's too-clean room, ran straight down my spine. My heart hammered, and frantic, deafening rhythm. My fingers, trembling like autumn leaves, reached out, traced the edge of the scorch mark. The paper felt rough, crumbly where it had burned. Impossible. My voice was a choked whisper. No one talked about this, not really.
It was fiction, a theory. But it was happening, right here, to me. I was the only one seeing this, the only one. I looked at the black, burnt hole on the page, the pale blue light from the quantum monitor reflecting on my face, twisting it into something unsettling, something I didn't quite recognize. My face, but not quite. "This isn't a computer glitch," I whispered, my voice caught in my throat, sounding alien and small. I slumped down onto the office chair beside the dusty shelf, clutching the book tight against my chest. My breath was coming in ragged gasps. "Get it together, Ethan. Get it together." The smell of burnt paper grew stronger. Too strong. It wasn't just coming from the book. No, it was something else. I lifted the book closer to my face, pressing my nose against the scorched page. The smell was there, certainly, but beneath it, something else. Something foul. A familiar scent, but wrong. The cloying, metallic tang of smoke? Burnt flesh? A memory, a faint flicker of something searing hot, something tearing apart. It was my own scent. The smell of sweat, the metallic tang of my blood, the faint, sickening char of burnt hair. My own hair, my own skin. I pulled the book away, gasping. No, it wasn't coming from the book. It was coming from me. The smell of charred meat, of burning organic matter. It was swirling around me. I started to cough, a dry, harsh, hacking sound that ripped through my throat, as if I had inhaled a lungful of smoke. My mouth was suddenly parched, my tongue thick and heavy. I was a dying fire, slowly, irrevocably burning into nothing. My body felt ephemeral, like it was evaporating, dissolving, melting away. I wasn't me anymore, not truly. I somehow stumbled out of the quantum center, the strange odor of myself clinging to my clothes, my skin. The journey home was a blur of distorted streetlights, car horns that sounded like screams. I locked the apartment door behind me, leaning against it, chest heaving. The place I called home, my sanctuary. It felt like a trap now. Every shadow, every creak was a threat. I looked at the coffee cup on the table, the one I'd left on the left side. It wasn't there. The mug was gone, clean gone. Nothing, not a single trace. I stared, my eyes burning, trying to will it back into existence. It wasn't there. I gripped the old book. The scorch mark on the word nucleus seemed to pulse, a tiny, dark heart. And the smell of burning flesh, my burning flesh, was so strong now, it made me gag. I stumbled back, catching myself on the sofa, dropping the book. It landed face down, the scorched page hidden. Then I heard it. A soft, precise knock. Not loud, just a gentle tap. It was coming from the door, my door, but also from the wall to my left, and from the window, and, God help me, from just behind my head.
It was everywhere at once, a spatial impossibility. I whipped around, my eyes scanning the room. My apartment, the one I'd known for years, my safe place. I looked at the door, not a door anymore. The solid wood, the familiar brass knob, it was gone. Instead, a long hallway stretched out before me, impossibly deep, curving around corners I didn't remember existing. The walls of this hallway seemed to be made of some kind of pale, shimmering gel. They rippled and stretched, subtly pulsing, like living tissue. Every surface was distorted, reflecting my own panicked face back at me in 1,000 warped angles. I saw it then, on the wall directly opposite me, a large rectangular mirror. It showed my apartment, exactly as it should be. The coffee cup, it was there, on the table, on the right side. Everything was normal. But in the reflection, I was standing with my back to myself. My reflection was looking at something, staring intently at the laptop screen. On the reflection of the laptop screen, there was a face, muted blue light spilling from it. No eyes, just empty, distorted sockets. And it was staring right at the back of my reflected head. I cried out, a strangled, guttural sound, and fell to my knees. The impact jarred my teeth. The smell of my own burning skin was overwhelming, sickening. I collapsed onto the floor, tasting dust and fear. My blood pounded in my ears, a frantic, desperate rhythm. I looked down at the floor, then back at the real laptop, the real screen. The red text was gone. Instead, the scorch mark from the book, the black spreading char, had somehow migrated. It wasn't on the book anymore. It was on my screen. It had bloomed outwards, consuming the entire display, forming a massive, grinning face. No, not grinning. It was smiling. A terrible, silent, knowing smile. From the burnt, twisted pixels of that smiling face, a whisper resonated. Not from the speakers, not from the air around me. It was inside my head, directly, chillingly. Welcome back, my anchor. This time we begin anew. And then, just above my own front door, where the impossible hallway had been, a new crack appeared. Not a hairline crack. This one was shaped like a precise, terrifying triangle. It pulsed, and then, slowly, inexorably, it widened. Just enough to reveal a pair of eyes. Not human eyes. Black, entirely black. No pupils. Just infinite, swirling darkness. And they were staring straight at me, watching, waiting. They knew. How many times had I begun anew? The thought clawed at my mind. And who the hell was we? The black eyes watched me, unblinking. I had no idea. But I knew one thing with absolute, bone-chilling certainty. My nightmare had just begun. And this time, it was wide awake. The metallic tang of burnt meat was still in my mouth when I fell, hitting the floor with a jolt that sent pain shooting up my spine. My hands, still shaking, instinctively covered my head, like a child hiding from a monster. But the monster, I knew, was behind my eyes, always. The black eyes, swirling like twin abysses, watched me from the triangular crack above where my apartment door used to be, now just a shimmering, pulsing hallway. They stared, waiting. They knew. That whisper, "Welcome back, my anchor. This time we begin anew." It coiled in my head. I don't know how long I stayed like that, huddled on the floor, surrounded by the echoes of what used to be my home. Maybe minutes,
maybe hours. Time felt lumpy, stretched and compressed at the same time. The smell of burning, of something charred and organic, still clung to my nostrils, and the cold spot on my neck, it never left. Eventually, the impossible hallway, the black eyes, they faded. Not with a pop, not like they vanished, more like they just blurred, dissolving back into the familiar, if still too clean, white wall of my apartment. The coffee mug was still gone. My laptop screen was dark now. No smiling face, no red text. Just a blank black rectangle, reflecting nothing but the dim room. I crawled to the sofa, pulling myself up, my muscles screaming in protest. Every cell in my body felt wrung out, like a wet rag. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. Maybe I was just having a psychotic break, a mental snap after the accident. That had to be it, right? It had to be. I grabbed my phone, fingers fumbling over the screen. Sarah, my oldest friend.
She'd always listened. Even when I went on about quantum entanglement theories, she barely understood. I needed her. I needed a normal voice. I called her. It rang twice, 3 times. Then she picked up. Hello? Her voice, it was Sarah's voice, the familiar lilt, the slight huskiness. A knot in my chest loosened a fraction. Sarah? Oh God, Sarah, it's me, Ethan. My voice cracked, raw with relief and pure fear. A beat of silence. Ethan? Who is this? I don't know anyone named Ethan. Her tone was flat, not harsh, not angry, just indifferent, like talking to a telemarketer. My blood ran cold. What? No, it's me, Ethan, from... I tried to think of shared memories. From college, from the lab, your necklace, you know, the teal one I gave you for your birthday, remember? The one with the small silver charm? My necklace? Another pause. Look, mister, I think you've got the wrong number. I've always worn this one. She sounded less annoyed now, more bewildered. It's purple. Always has been. Got it from my aunt years ago. I swallowed a scream. Purple? I stammered. No, Sarah, it's teal. It's always been teal. I think you need to lay off the whatever it is you're on, she said, her voice tightening, a hint of something like caution. I'm hanging up now. Wait, I cried. Sarah, please, just tell me, how do you know me? I don't, she said, and then the line went dead. I stared at the phone. My hand hovered over the call back button, but I couldn't press it. Purple, she said. I pictured her, vivid in my mind. The old photo on my desk before this latest incident. Her smile, her bright, laughing eyes, and the teal necklace glittering against her skin. I remember her telling me she got it from her aunt, yes, but it was teal. I always remembered the subtle sparkle of the stone, like trapped sunlight. Now, it was purple, just like that. And her smile online, a memory? It was just a fraction slower, like a faulty circuit. Even the sound of her voice, though familiar, had a strange, almost echoey quality, like she was talking from another room, or another dimension. A heavy, sick feeling settled in my stomach. Denial was a powerful thing, but this wasn't just my mind playing tricks anymore. I needed physical proof, something tangible. I stumbled into my bedroom, straight to my photo album, the one on my nightstand, thick with years of memories. My hand trembled as I opened it, flipping through pages, my own history flying past.
friends, vacations, family. And then I found it. The photo of my parents and me at the Grand Canyon. A perfect summer day, the endless blue sky, the red rock formation stretching out forever. But there, on the far edge of the frame, a man, tall, impossibly thin, in a drab gray coat, his back mostly to the camera. His arm was raised slightly, as if waving. A blurred, forgotten ghost in the background. I didn't know him. I had never seen him before in my life. And yet, there he was, standing right there in my captured memory. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the glossy paper. Instinctively, I expected the warmth of the summer sun, a faint echo of the heat from that day. Instead, the photo was colder than anything I've ever touched. Ice. It was like holding a tiny shard of ice. Frost nipped at my fingertips. A chill, a real physical chill this time, snaked up my spine. Not from the cold of the photo, but from something else. The air around me suddenly felt thick, heavy, like a blanket. And the distinct, horrifying sensation of being watched from directly behind me. I heard nothing, not a creak, not a breath. Just that cold, heavy stillness. I squeezed my eyes shut, clutching the photo in my hand. "It's just an old photo," I muttered, my voice a thin, reedy sound, barely audible. "Maybe I just forgot. Yeah, I forgot. That's it." My voice was supposed to convince me, but it only sounded like a lie. The paper in my hand crinkled. I had crushed the photo, the cold edge digging into my palm. The cold, watchful presence remained. I knew it, but I couldn't turn around. I couldn't. I spent the rest of that day trying to make sense of things, pacing my apartment, muttering to myself. The scent of burnt flesh had lessened, thankfully, but the cold spot on my neck and the feeling of constantly being observed, they were persistent. The idea that everything was falling apart, not just for me, but because of me, clawed at my insides.
I needed more answers. Someone, somewhere, had to know something. The Quantum Nucleus book was still lying on my floor, scorched page up. I picked it up, the smell of burnt paper still faintly rising from the page. Inter-reality resonances. It hit me then. The crack on my wall. Sarah's necklace. The man in the photo. It wasn't just my perception. The world was changing. I remembered the seminar I'd seen advertised online from a different university. Something about new theories on quantum entanglement, cross-dimensional particles. A long shot, yes, but what else did I have? I powered on my laptop. The screen flickered to life. Normal. No grinning face, no red text. Just my desktop. A relief. A momentary reprieve that lasted exactly 0 seconds. I navigated to the seminar link. The screen filled with the image of a lecture hall. A young professor, earnest and energetic, stood in front of a whiteboard filled with complex diagrams. He was talking about reality cores and something he called biological anchors. My stomach clenched. He was showing a diagram, a web of interconnected lines, a central glowing orb. The words from the screen at the lab came back to me. Loop unstable, anchor shattered. The professor turned to the whiteboard, picked up a marker. As he moved, the back of his tweed jacket came into full view. There, it was right there. A burn mark. A crisp, triangular scorch mark. Exactly the same shape and size as the one on the Quantum Nucleus book.
and the one I'd started to see in my waking dreams. My breath hitched. This couldn't be a coincidence. This was too much. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I tried to swallow, but my throat was painfully dry. "No way," I muttered, my voice raspy. "This is not happening." The professor suddenly stopped writing. He slowly turned his head, not his body, just his head, until his face was looking directly into the camera, directly at me. His eyes, though, they weren't brown or blue or green. They were a color I couldn't place. A strange, unsettling mix of orange and blue. Blorange was the only thing my brain could call it. It was a color that shouldn't exist. And then his mouth opened slightly. No sound came from the laptop speakers, but inside my head, loud and clear, was a dry, raspy whisper. "Kyoth na." It was gibberish, utter nonsense. And yet, somehow, deep down, I understood it. I just knew what it meant. Your mind is a bent mirror. The professor's blorange eyes widened just a fraction. Then he vanished. Not a cut to another camera, not a feed ending. One moment he was there, staring at me with those impossible eyes. The next, he was just gone. The screen went utterly blank. A blue, blinding light filled it, followed by static, then silence. A ringing, high-pitched in my ears. I scrambled back from the laptop, chair scraping loudly across the floor. I wanted to run, wanted to scream, but my legs felt heavy, like lead, bolted to the floor. The ringing in my ears intensified, a piercing, unrelenting shriek. I had to try again. I picked up my phone, my fingers fumbling. Sarah. I called her again. "Hello?" Her voice again, but it was different. Higher, brittle. "Sarah, it's Ethan again. Ethan? I told you I don't know an Ethan. And please stop calling. This is harassment." Her voice was colder this time. No, not cold. Distant, like she was reading from a script. "No, Sarah, please, it's me. Remember when we met at the park? Your dog, Buster. He chased a squirrel up a tree, and you laughed so hard you cried." A beat of complete silence. A click. Then, "Call again, and I'm calling the police." The line went dead. For good this time. My heart was a ragged, bleeding mess in my chest. I tried my parents. My mother's voice picked up. "Hello? Who is this?" The voice was warped, like a warped tape recording. It sounded tinny, stretched, then too fast. "Hello? Who is this? We don't know you. We don't know you. We don't know you." It looped, a terrible, broken record, a ghost echo. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, screen mirroring my own ashen, distorted face. I stared at myself. I hardly recognized the man looking back. Everyone. They'd all forgotten me. Everyone had forgotten. Everyone except me. I was the only one. Alone. Completely alone.
A long, shuddering breath tore itself from my lungs. The air in the room, it felt thin, cold, even though the apartment was a comfortable temperature. It was a strange, chilling cold, not of winter, but of absence. I walked numbly back into the living room, a ghost in my own apartment. I stopped, dead still. In the middle of the room, on the wall where the impossible corridor had briefly been, was my full-length ornate mirror, the one that usually hung there. And in it, my reflection stood, back to me, facing the empty space where the laptop sat. I raised my right hand, slowly, deliberately. The reflection didn't move. My hand remained at my side in the mirror. No flicker, no delay, just nothing. It wasn't reflecting me, not anymore. Then, slowly, agonizingly slowly, the reflection turned its head. It wasn't a natural movement, like a faulty mannequin. Its eyes were black now, utterly, completely black. And a smile. A huge, wide, distorted grin stretched across its face, extending unnaturally towards its ears. Its mouth didn't move, but the voice, dry and rasping, was back in my head, louder now, clearer than before. You are still the only one awake, pitiful. A pause, a breath that wasn't a breath. But you are only a part of the reboot. You unconsciously created them. You are the core. I felt a dizzying lurch, like falling into a black hole. My legs buckled, I stumbled back, my mind reeling. I created them? All of this? The loops, the suffering, the constant resets? I was the source? The core? The shattered anchor? A knot of cobwebs seemed to cling to my face, though there was nothing there. I felt a surge of pure, sickening revulsion, not for the reflection, but for myself, my role, my horror. I crashed to the floor again, knees hitting the hard wood. The reflection in the mirror didn't disappear. It started to melt, slowly at first, the edges of its form rippling, blurring, like a badly rendered image. Its pale face, that horrible black-eyed smile, began to drip, running down the glassy surface like black paint. A spreading, oozing puddle of darkness, consuming the mirror's reflection of my apartment, of everything. And then my apartment, my actual apartment, not just the reflection, started to melt too. The sturdy wooden table, the one I gripped so often, suddenly softened, buckling in on itself, its color running downwards like wet watercolors on canvas. The books on my shelf sagged, their pages liquefying, blending into a swirling, unidentifiable mess of pigment. The comfortable beige sofa, my sanctuary for so long, started to ripple, its fabric dissolving, its shape losing all integrity, flowing into the floor, mixing colors. Sounds. Oh God, the sounds. They twisted, stretching and contracting, highs becoming lows, familiar notes becoming impossible dissonances, a cacophony that ripped at my eardrums. I looked out the window, my window. The city lights, usually a comforting glow, were now a horrifying kaleidoscope. Thousands, millions of versions of the city were pressed together, overlapping, phasing in and out of existence. One skyscraper would shimmer, then transform into a church steeple, then vanish into thin air, only to reappear as three distinct skyscrapers, one on top of the other, swaying like drunken giants. And in all the shifting light, I saw them. Brief flashes, like corrupted video frames, glitch figures, versions of me and Sarah. They appeared in the sky, on the melting buildings, in the twisting streets. They were transparent, disfigured, screaming silently.
their bodies dissolving and reforming in blinding bursts of light. They died, they were reborn, over and over. My core nightmares. They weren't nightmares. They were real. I couldn't close my eyes. I couldn't. My own body started to feel insubstantial, like I was melting too, along with everything around me. My skin tingled, then burned, then felt like it was evaporating. My consciousness, my I, began to fray, tearing apart like old paper. Who was Ethan? What was Ethan? The questions themselves began to lose meaning. There was Ethan, not anymore. The world was finally, irrevocably gone, reduced to a blinding, swirling white noise of light and sound. My body, I felt it vanish, not with a bang, but a slow, quiet fade. My personal sense of me detached, peeling away layer by layer, until it was gone. Nothing. Just a single, solitary point of awareness, floating in an endless, cold void.
And from that void, I saw them. Countless new loops, infinite versions of reality, forming like bubbles in an unseen current. And in each bubble, faint but clear, an Ethan, waking up in a hospital bed, confused, disoriented, oblivious, becoming, starting anew, over and over. I was the source, the cold, unmoving center. I was everything, but I was nothing. I just existed. A cold, unknowing existence, stripped of will, of thought, of feeling. The ultimate anchor, the eternal nucleus. But then, out there, beyond the furthest edge of the forming loops, I saw him, another Ethan, but not me. This version of Ethan, tall and unblemished, stood in the pure void, looking down at the swirling chaos, looking down at me, at the center I had become. His eyes weren't black, nor blorange. They were clear, piercing blue. And he was whole, complete. He had escaped. He had rebuilt himself. He was the architect. And he smiled.